You're listening to Tabletop Arcanum, a podcast dedicated to learning and exploring the hobby of tabletop gaming. Your hosts are Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, so sit back and relax as we talk, discuss, and joke our way through the hobby we love so much.
As vast and dark as a sunless planetoid, the Blackstone Fortress is a creation far beyond the technological ken of any race in the galaxy. Who built this colossal craft, and what is the purpose, are the questions that many wish to answer. And even in its current state of torpor, the Blackstone Fortress is possessed of immense power. Yet this mysterious structure is not unique. 6 others like it were found by the Imperium many centuries ago, and the destruction they wrought helped to tear the galaxy in half.
So welcome to another review episode from Tabletop Arcanum. I'm Justin.
And I'm Ricky.
And we'll be talking today about the new Games Workshop Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress game. But before we get too far into that, we'll do our traditional roll recap, where we talk about the games we've been playing since we last hosted. Ricky, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Oh, excellent. So this week I did play a few rounds of Boss Monster with my niece, trying to get her more into better gaming. She just kind of likes to jump into random IP-based games, so it does get a little rough.
IP-based games like what?
Me and her did play a few rounds of Rick and Morty, The Ricks Must Be Crazy, because she is a fan of the show. Not a bad game. Actually, it was fun. I had to go easy on her because, again, she's my niece, and I don't want to expose her to the cold truth that the world is mean. But I still won. I played a few rounds of Arkham Horror. We, again, go back to us playing Blackstone Fortress. We played that this week. And no Harry Potter this time.
Still no Harry Potter.
No Harry Potter.
2 episodes without Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Have you been painting Legion?
I have been painting a little bit here and there.
Okay, so at least some basic touchstone is still there for people to, like, whew, at least he's Star Warsing.
Yeah, I get way too particular about mold lines, and I do a lot of sanding and green stuffing to make sure everything looks really, really nice. But I'm getting there.
Sounds good. Other than the Blackstone Fortress games that we played, the only other real game I've touched in the last week and a half here has been Keyforge.
How are you liking it so far?
Well, I've gone to 4 tournaments and like 3 different release parties, so I kind of like it, I think. I've been getting a lot of repetitions in on it. Got a handful of decks now, so I've seen a little bit of sampling of everything. I've also played a bunch of different decks, so I've seen a lot of different options that are out there too. Not just the things I own, but things that other people have opened and packed. And it's been a lot of fun. One of the things I enjoy and don't enjoy is because there's no deck building. You crack your deck, it's your unique 36 cards, and that's all you get to play with. No adding, changing, or removing cards. I like it from the sense of I don't have to theory craft any deck building. I can just stick to, this is what I got to play with, and I gotta make the most of what I've got. Downside to that is sometimes deck building is very fun, and a nice relaxing, like theory crafting, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, find those synergies. You can still do that with Keyforge, at least from the synergy, and seeing how your deck can combo out, and like sample hands, and seeing, like, I actually found a way, there's a specific rule in the game called the Rule of 6. Because the decks are so randomized and randomly generated, there are ways that you can actually technically get infinite loop triggers. And I found one of those in one of my decks. But the Rule of 6 means you can only trigger it 6 times. And then you have to stop. So they cap the infinite loop, but because of that and something else I did in that turn, I ended up with something like 13 amber generated in that round, on top of like the 4 or 5 I already had. So it was a stupid amount of amber, And it was interesting, but at the same time, like I looked at my opponent and was like, I'm really kind of sorry. I kind of felt a little dirty about it, but that's how the cards play, and that's what can happen. I've seen decks shut down other decks just because my hand and my deck was better and stronger than yours at the time of it happened. So I really enjoy it. One of the reasons why I think things like that are going to be okay is in a game of Keyforge, typically you're playing multiple rounds. Tournament settings, there's going to be a couple different formats, so sometimes you won't, but sometimes you will. If you don't, then it's just a luck of your matchups. But if you do, you're usually playing best 2 out of 3. So if one deck is really trouncing the other, you'll figure that out pretty quickly, but you might have a chance to recover. So Keyforge has been my, I've been playing a lot of Keyforge. I want to play other games too now, but lately I just really want to get a lot of play on that one.
And we've also seen the unsecond marketable card game has hit the second market.
Right.
And it's already kind of being broken, but
for a game that is 100% unique, yes, people are going out there and selling decks for a ridiculous amount of money, depending on what super rare, unique card or combination are in there. If that's what you want to do and that's what you want to spend your money on, okay. I'm not buying a $200 or $2,000 deck anytime soon. Sorry. I'll take my random chance and make the most of it because I've seen the game in action. These highly sought-after decks, while powerful, just the right combination of cards can shut them down just as fast as anything else. So it's all kind of up for grabs still. As far as new releases go,
we did get an announcement for my
I know
my go-to. Fantasy Flight announced that we are going to be seeing Jyn Erso as a
commander.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantasy Flight did announce that we're going to be seeing Jyn Erso as a commander for Rebels, as well as a Rebel Pathfinder squad. And I will say that out of all the Rebel squads to come out, this one does excite me the most because not necessarily I don't know what it's going to do in game, but I do like the variety of actually having different aliens in there. If I want to have a cookie cutter army, I would be looking more at the Empire. I kind of like the fact that they're finally starting to see there are people out there modding the other miniatures and putting aliens' heads on there to kind of give it a new look, and they're putting something out for that.
Good. And then for your RPG fans, there is your local gaming store should have or can get the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition gift set, which is your player's handbook, your Dungeon Master guide, and your monster manual, plus these Dungeon Master screen as kind of a boxed set. And the retailers have an exclusive cover for those, which has this nice matte finish, foil lined sort of archaic tome look, which is very fancy, very neat, and not any more expensive than the books would be separately. And then they come with a slip cover to keep them nice and protected. And that is something that Dungeons & Dragons has been doing, is these retailer exclusive alternate covers, where you're not going to get this off Amazon, you're not going to get this from any online dealer, you're going to have to go to a local gaming store because they're the only ones to getting these alternate covers. And they're a limited print, and they look a little bit nicer. That being said, they are releasing the gift set and the standard covers as well for those online retailers. Same price. It's just
Not as pretty.
Not as pretty, in my opinion. So on to our main topic of the Warhammer Quest 40k Blackstone Fortress. This is a game coming up on November 23rd, released by Games Workshop. It's in their Warhammer 40k universe. MSRP is $150. And it comes with a lot of stuff. So I'm going to go over the contents that you're going to get with this $150 price tag. And then we're going to go in a little bit more deeper, what it's like, what we've played, what we like, what we don't like about it. So first things first, it is a Games Workshop thing, so it's absolutely a miniatures-based game, and you get 44 Citadel miniatures. Some of them are your explorers and the characters that you're going to be playing, and then most of them are going to be the hostile bad guys that you're going to be facing in this game. There's 5 rule books. Don't let that scare you, because what they really did is they took instead of having one major big fat rule book, they took each section of the game and made its own little mini rule book for it, which we'll talk about what we like about it. But essentially you get a 16-page basic rule book, a 16-page combat rule book, a 24-page precipice rule book, which is your home base that you get to go back to in the game, and there's a whole sub-turn based off of that. 24-page of lore and background about the Blackstone Fortress, the characters that are involved and things that are going on. Just pure Warhammer background lore story. And then you also get the 16-page data sheets for all of the miniatures that are coming with this game. So you can take any one of them and put them into Warhammer 40,000 armies and be able to use them with these data sheets. On top of that, so that's the minis and the rule books. You also have 40 double-sided tiles, which are your game boards. Over 230 cards. 9 stasis bags, which are like really nice plastic bags, because it's a campaign-based game and you're not going to be able to finish in one sitting. So they have these bags already in there for you, so you can store your character, what things you've acquired, what items you have. And be able to kind of save your progress. They have a lot of markers, a bunch of dice in there that you'll be able to burn through and use, and then the data bank and hidden vault sealed packages. The hidden vault itself is kind of the secret of the game, and we'll be talking about that as part of the objectives. Diving a little bit deeper into the minis themselves, for those who are very interested what exactly you're getting. As far as hostiles, there's Obsidious Malad, who is a Chaos Lord for the Chaos Space Marines. You get 2 basic Chaos Space Marines, 4 Chaos Beastmen, 4 Urguls, 4 Negavolt Cultists, 2 Rogue Psychers, 4 Spindle Drones, which I swear these things look like more 40k version of the portal turrets. And then 14 Traders Guardsmen, which apparently, from everything I've seen, is what the real hotness is getting these Trader Guardsmen models, because they really don't exist outside of this box. All these models are unique to this set. So even if you want to kit bash and do other things with your miniatures, you may even be looking at this as if you're a 40k fan and not necessarily a board gamer. Mm-hmm. And then there's the explorers themselves. So these are the characters that you get to play as. There's Janus Drac, a rogue trader. Tadius the Purifier, a mini-storm priest. Esprin Lurcro, a imperial navigator. Polonius Vorn, a missionary zealot. UR-025, an imperial robot. Dalak Geth, a Kroot tracker. Amelin Shadowglide, an Ansuri ranger. And then Rain and Russ, who are Rattling twins. And I've probably butchered every single one of those names. Except maybe Rain and Russ. I think I've got them down.
It's 40k.
Oh, UR-25 is probably pretty easy to say.
It's your dash 025.
Yeah, like L33T or Leet.
There you go.
Yeah, no. The one thing I will say is these miniatures are not come unpainted, as all GW miniatures will. They do come in 2 colors, so the explorers are in a red plastic, where everything else is in the standard gray plastic. So if you're not inclined on painting, don't be afraid, because your character, your heroes will look distinctly different from the hostiles. The hostiles will all be boring gray, but You can pretty much clip them, push them together, and call it a day and be ready to play pretty quickly. You will need a pair of snips, because they are on plastic sprues that you have to clip them out and then smash them together. They are push fit, so you do not need the super glue if you don't want it.
We did verify that if you did want to glue them, they are snug fit. You're not going to have any gaps. I believe that GW had an issue, and I don't remember which game it was, where the glue kind of offset.
Mm-hmm. That was their Age of Sigmar 2.0 release, the Soul Wars box, which were all push-fit models, but the peg and holes that kind of keep them together, there wasn't any air gaps, so if you put a dab of glue in there, it had nowhere to go. So compression means, it dried, and then it separated a little bit, and all the miniatures, if you tried to glue them without modifying the pegs, pulled apart just enough so you had like this weird awkward gap in the models. So yeah, we did verify that these should not do that to you. If you are concerned about that, you can take a little bit of those snips, cut the peg down a little bit to create that extra space for that glue in there. It's not going to hurt anything. So lots of stuff in this box. So $150 price tag is steep. However, you do get a lot for it. The one thing that we'll say is you also get a lot of hours of gameplay out of this. Because the idea behind the Blackstone Fortress is you are these group of explorers trying to get into the Blackstone Fortress, but you have to get clues and data keys to do so. So you play mission after mission after mission trying to get these clues so that you can go to one of the 4 citadels in the Blackstone Fortress, which are special maps that you get to play. So you get 4 clues, you go to one of the special maps, do that 4 times, and then you can attempt the vault, which is like the end level of the game. And when you get to the vault, that's where you kind of open the vault, and then there's that sealed package of what's inside the vault that you get to open up at that point and get the secret out. So it is a legacy game in that aspect, that there is a sealed package that you will not know the contents of until you get to it in the game, or if you open it and cheat early. However, that's kind of the only legacy style element in there. Everything else is very campaign based, so it's very randomized. What missions, what challenges, what maps you're going to be going through to try to get to there. So there's a lot of replayability in that sense, and I consider this more of a campaign based game for that sake.
I also say with a $150 suggested retail price, that's close to a starter set in 40K or Sigmar. So you get a little less model-wise, but when you get less than model-wise, you do make up with this campaign. I know tons of people who have bought these starter sets, and it never is just that starter set. You buy the starter set, and the next thing you know, you're just like me and Legion. You're buying box after box after box of expansions to add to this army. It's a self-contained. They haven't announced any kind of expansions yet, but
we anticipate that they will
yeah,
probably expand if it's extra characters, extra boards, extra maps, something, extra missions.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways that they could add on to this game very easily.
Yeah.
On top of all of that, you bring up a really good point that yes, it is a complete game. You cannot play Games Workshop games alone. But wait, you can in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
So like normally Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, you have to have an opponent to place your army versus their army and whatever. But this is actually 1 to 5 players. The big trick is the hostiles are always AI unless you have a 5th player. That's where it gets really fun because the 5th player gets to control all the bad guys. And makes it probably even harder for you because now you have a human element thinking tactically opposed to how the AI works. And we'll talk a little bit about that and of how the AI works, and because I kind of like that system. But you always have 4 of the explorers. So if you're playing solo, you're controlling all 4 of them at once. If you're 2 players, you each have 2. If you're 3 players, there's 1 player that is considered a leader per expedition, and then they're the one with the extra character, and then that leader can change between expeditions, so then whoever gets the 4th character kind of rotates around a little bit. And then, of course, if you play 4 players, everybody gets 1. Mm-hmm. So, very nice. Setup and takedown is a little bit tricky, because you have to kind of set up all the decks, put all the boards aside, and then kind of run through your exploration round, and then maybe a combat will pop up, and then you have to pause, set up the board, set up the miniatures, and then play through that combat. When a combat breaks out, it was probably the lengthiest part of the game. And our first one was a little bit longer because we were learning the rules. And that was about an hour and...
Probably an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. We did another combat shortly thereafter, and it was about 45 minutes. Yeah. So once you actually have a grasp of what you're doing, it speeds up quite a bit. And again, remember, you have to get 4 of these clues in these combat situations where you're trying to find these discoveries. Out of pure luck, we got 2 clues in the 2 combats we did. So we were already half the way to the first citadel with just 2 missions. But that's kind of the fun of the game I like. So the idea is you're on this precipice, and you go in and you explore the Blackstone Fortress, and it's a push your luck almost dungeon crawl game, because every time you go back to the base, you have to play a legacy card, and there's only so many of them, and they all do something crazy, because like that's where it can add new enemy types to your enemy deck. You might get a virus that's screwing things up. The security drones might be on higher alert, or maybe something nothing bad happens, but it's just kind of a time placing card, like time is advanced. Beware. And you can really only go back to that citadel a fixed number of times, and by doing that, that's what's setting your timer. So if you don't beat the game within enough returns, you lose. So that's where that push your luck falls in, of like, okay, we finished this combat, how are we looking? Nobody's seriously injured right now. Let's keep going. Combat 2. Okay, we're still doing pretty all right. Let's do it again. Oh my god, the ratlings died. Everything is lost. We're bleeding out. Maybe we should go back. And that's where I like the campaign's elements of that, of you kind of have to push your luck as far as you can, because you know you can only go back so many times. When you go back, you turn in all the space junk that you find throughout the game, and you can cash it in for supplies and upgrades and extra tricks for your characters. So I really dig the fact that there's almost like this leveling system for your characters built into the game. Each one of them is all really unique. No 2 characters are very similar. We played with we saw most of them and read the rest. I was really having a lot of fun with the Eldar, who was like sniping Superstar. Like, oh, long corridor, bunch of enemies at the end? No problem. I'm just going to sit back and shoot them all. You ended up playing Janus, the rogue trader, who was a monster in melee.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun with his flurry of attacks. You just get close to something and
just unleash
knock him
on
down,
it.
Yeah.
We also saw the Imperial Navigator in play. He kind of was able to manipulate dice and use like psychic power or psyker powers. One of the cool things that he was able to do is like throw up like this force bubble sort of thing, and anyone in that hex had like super defense because he threw up a force field for us. And then the Ministrum priest was the other one. The pure Pius Vorn, the missionary zealot, was our 4th character that we were playing with, and he comes with a flamer, and that flamer pretty much ate anything that he unleashed his purifying flames on, which I thought was very, very fun.
I did like that. Like you said, you were sniping. I was up close. The Piesvorn was you can't be too close. You can't be too far away. If you really wanted to start doing damage, you just kind of had to be in that mid range.
And then the Navigator was kind of our support character, floating a little bit in that mid range too, but was able to help defense. Because I will say, anything that got close to me, I was worried, mainly because I had like no defense. One of the things I kind of dug is in this game, it's not all 6-sided dice, like you would expect out of 40K. Your primary like action dice are 6-sided and runs almost like a Dead of Winter style system where you have four activation dice per round. You roll them, and depending on what your rolls are, is what sort of powers you need. Your Fury of Blows power for Janus required you to use a 4 or higher result.
It was
or
4,
6 if you wanted the like super awesome version of it. So if your die rolls were 1, 2, or 3, you couldn't Fury of Blows with those particular dice.
Yeah, we should preface it by saying when you started out, you rolled 4 dice. Those dice were your dice pool. You pulled off of that. You could do certain things with certain dice. Some
basic actions like moving, basic attack, searching. A lot
of those didn't really need much. Some of them would need higher and higher, like to search a clue. You had to have a 4, or search for a clue. You had to have 4 or higher. Like the flurry of attacks. It was, if you did a 4+, it was a
2 attack.
2 attack, but if you did a 6+, you get 3 attacks.
Right.
And unfortunately, every time I had the chance to do that, I always knocked whatever I was fighting out with that first dice roll. But at the same time, to be able to do that much damage all at once
is going to be very, very beautiful and very, very important when it comes to later in the game when more and more powerful things start showing up. Because that's, I kind of hinted it with the going back to the prefaces, and you have that legacy deck where it can add extra creatures. You only start with like 4 or 5 types of creatures in the monster deck to start with. Like Trader Guardsmen are pretty basic. The Spindle Drones were there. The Negavolt Cultists, which were these like Tesla coil wearing crazy guys, and the Urgles. That was all we had to potentially deal with. There was no Chaos Beastmen. There was no Space Marines. There was no Rogue Psychers. Those are all things that get added into your enemy deck at some point when you go back to the base. And I'm pretty sure most of those things are things that we probably need, that Fury of Blows or my sniper round sort of shot where I could take the best die, roll it, and then potentially re-roll it too. So talking about these dice is you kind of have like these RPG stat lines for your agility, for your defense, and for your vitality. And you could either have a 6-sided die, which has successes on 2 of the 6 sides. You could have a D8 and have 4 successes and 4 blanks. Or you could have the D12, which is the best die, and have 8 success sides and 4 blank sides. So you always had a blank, but your probability of hitting exponentially grew every time you went up a die. So either 33%, 33%, 50%, or 66% of the time, depending on which die you had a chance of doing something. Which I thought was a really nice way of balancing that out and using the different dice for different mechanics. The enemy AI is interesting because it ran off of kind of a behavior chart. So you roll a destiny die, which is D20. And you check the chart and you look at the enemy and go, okay, are they engaged with someone? Are they out of sight? A couple different statuses they could be in. And then they had a whole bunch of different actions that they would run off of based on what that is. So maybe they sneak up, and that means they move, but they don't move into line of sight of someone else. Maybe they charge and do like a double move at you. Maybe they go full out berserk mode and double attack if they can. Or maybe they just move and attack. So using the AI was this really nice, simple system. It didn't really slow down the game. It was like, okay, someone rolled, the leader rolled the D20, someone else was using the chart, and the third one of us that was playing moved the models. So we kind of as a team ran through the AI motions instead of having just one player do it. Now, of course, if you have 5 players, you have a player actually moving the models and actually thinking about what he's trying to do. And I think that's going to be very fun.
I would love to be that guy, because you can just keep sending wave after wave of people.
Right. Oh yeah. And yeah, while the enemies may start with 4, 6, and you might kill them, some of them, all of them, at the start of each enemy activation, they have a chance to get reinforcements. So you roll the D20 on a 1, 2, or 3, more spawn. And that can be rough. So the initiative, there's also an initiative track that changes every round. So the order of operations can shift around in a turn, which was really neat. A little bit tough to plan for, but everybody had, or most of the characters had, some sort of way to manipulate that initiative track. So you could either swap positions with someone else, or you could take a gamble, risk one of your dice, and maybe bump up a space in the track. That way, if you're in a bad position, you really need to try to get something, you had the opportunity. Unlike D&D, if I roll 1 initiative, well, I guess I'm going last. And there's nothing I can do about that.
It also makes you feel good, because it does change every turn. So if you are the person who constantly rolls 1s and is going to go last all the time, when the round starts again, you have another chance to be bumped up and hopefully see some action before everyone goes through everything.
Or the famous double turn. Go at the end, and then next round, go at the start. So you can really, really take some names pretty fast. So it has a lot of potential in that. The maps are a deck of cards that are randomized. But the maps themselves aren't randomized. So you draw it, and then it's either here's the map layout, you build the map, and then you draw off the enemy deck to see what enemies are spawned in the different spawn points.
I really did like the way that they set up this mapping with the different cards. Because that was a nice fat stack of cards.
Yes.
All of them unique, all of them with different layouts.
Yep.
And the way that they set up the map with the punch-out hexagon cards really was impressive. I really, really, really enjoyed that portion about it.
So, in essence, to have an expedition, kind of the overall arc of the game, because we talked about a little bit of everything so far, but to kind of give structure to it, you flip over one of these exploration cards, and it's either going to be a test or a challenge event based scenario, or it's going to be a combat scenario. And a combat scenario is going to have the map, like you just said. You set up all these hexagon pieces. You draw some enemy cards based on the number of discovery tokens that are out there, which is your clues or your space junk that you have to try to collect. And you're on this maglev elevator sort of platform, so it's like, ding, second floor. This is, cultists and Urgles. Yay. Maybe we should smash the elevator door close button and try the next level. But then you go through your combat or your challenge, and then you have that choice of, do we go back or do we push forward? And if you push forward, you flip the next exploration card, and you do what it has to say. And then you just kind of rinse and repeat until you're ready to go back to the base. And then you have a whole kind of an upkeep phase at the base of, okay, everybody who's grievously wounded gets better, because you can't heal grievous wounds while out exploring. You can only heal normal wounds. The neat thing about that is then you have your legacy turn, you have your buying stuff phase, you can trade resources and items with people, and then you go, okay, let's do it again, and then flip another exploration card and push your luck and keep going. So it has a lot of replay value in the randomness of how things are set up, but I never felt the game was so random it didn't make sense. I guess if that makes sense. Because it was a lot of mystery of like, why are we here? Why are we looking at this? And there's 24 pages of lore going into what this place is, who we are as explorers. So the background's there for you. And it's, if you want to read it or not, that's up to you. I definitely suggest, because that is going to give you a deeper experience, but hefty amount of lore.
And since we are talking about the lore, we can also go into what we liked about how they set up those books as well. Whereas in the good old Codex days of Games Workshop, where you bought a book and it came with everything all in one, this comes with a book of lore, and then it came with a setup book, a book for combat.
Right.
They split everything up. So when you're in the different scenarios, instead of having to pull out this book and try to dig through it and try to find what you should be doing, you have a single book for whatever phase that you're in.
Right. So the exploration book, there's it's not much to it. It has a lot of the basic rules and concepts in there. You refer to it kind of the first game or two that you play, and then you kind of leave it alone. Combat breaks out. All right, we have our 16-page combat rule book. That's pretty much all we're going to need to reference, as we might have some questions on how things spawn, how cover works, things of that nature. Maybe how the AI works a little bit, because they will say, that's ambush. What does ambush mean? And then, we're going back to base. All right, bust out the Precipice book, and it walks you through all of your setup of how to do that phase of the game. So you're not, like you said, you're not searching for that section of a rule book. You just have that rule book section separated from the rest of all the sections. So I really liked that. Because learning a game is rough enough. I don't need to flip through a 40-page rule book to try to find the one rule I need.
I mean, if we really put it all together, we're looking at an 80-page rule book if it was all put together.
Right.
And then it's always that one rule that that you saw somewhere, and maybe it was all the way up near the setup, or maybe it was all the way in the Precipice area. No, if you want a combat rule, it's in the combat book. You don't have to look anywhere else.
So I'm really excited for this game. I don't think we played it enough like we did with Arkham Horror to really get a deep feeling for it, but based on the couple games we've played already, definitely something worth to check into. And definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on for this holiday season, because this game looks fun. And I know a lot of people who may not be into 40K, but a tactical minis, like dudes on a map sort of game, that gives you almost a D&D dungeon crawl feel, but is very structured and not like I'm busting out measuring tapes. I know some people who can get into that more than they could on a standard Warhammer game. This is the Warhammer game for me, because it only has 44 models to paint, and then I'm done.
In theory.
Until they release an expansion. But it's not like I have to paint an entire 2,000-point army.
Yeah, exactly. Like some fools who got into other miniature games that involve you just repeatedly going out,
stormtroopers,
going out and buying more and more and more.
Right.
I just picked up more Legion just to find out
More is coming.
More is coming on Friday. So
yeah. So in short, I would definitely recommend this game for someone who likes their tactical minis games or tactical battle games. If you're interested in the Warhammer universe and you really don't want to dive deep into the true 40k experience, I guess I'll say.
The saga, all the novels, and all the...
This has a little bit of everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got a little bit of lore, you get a little bit of the board game feel, you get the painting, the miniature side of things. It's like a sampler pack of everything that Games Workshop is.
But it's a sampler pack, unlike the starter sets that give you enough to start 2 armies. This is a starter set that'll actually set you on course to enjoy the miniatures, to enjoy the lore, to enjoy everything that the game has to offer.
I would not recommend this to someone who doesn't like random chance, because there's a lot of dice rolling and there are some ways to mitigate it or force rerolls, but some of it is just pure luck roll. And if your dice are not hot, they're not hot. The other thing is it is a little bit grim and darker, so if you're not into that H.R. Geiger sort of feel, that 40k grim, dark, gothic universe.
Space dystopian space opera.
Right. If that's not really a theme that you're comfortable with, none of this is going to be comfortable for you then. Because it has that very 40k gothic space horror aspect to it. The Urgles are pretty awesome models, but they're your creepy like ghoul monsters. I'm trying to think of anyone else I would say, hey, maybe not for you. But if you're looking for a true like miniatures war game in a box, you're not going to get it here either. You're going to want to stick to your traditional 40k starter set too, because everything's on a map. It's more of that D&D feel of, okay, I get to move 2 spaces. Cool. 1, 2. Not 2 inches, not 6 inches. Okay, I'll move 6 inches and then roll the die and I get to move that many more inches. None of that. Line of sight is also very easy. It's hex to hex.
Center of hex to center of hex.
Yeah.
So you can't try to say, well, I can see him hanging on the edge there from where I am. No, it's set that if you can see it from the center of the hex that you're on to the center of the hex they're on, that's the only way you can.
And if it's a clean line, it's a clean line. If they have some hazard lines or cover lines of like, if you look at the tiles, you'll see like, oh, there's like this crystal or something there.
There's a wall
there's
or
a mechanical device or console of some sort. And they'll put like a white line across that part of the hex, or maybe circle the whole hex in white lines. And if your line of sight draws over one of those, what you're shooting at or stabbing at is considered undercover, which gives it a defensive bonus. So it's pretty cut and dry as far as that goes, which is one of the benefits to it. But if that sounds like it's too cut and dry for you, maybe that's where you say, okay, I need to stick to my regular 40k. So definitely, I would say we would recommend it from a board gamer's perspective. Gives you a sample of the 40k universe without having to buy a 2,000 point army.
Exactly. I think it's a bridge between the two. If you are into wargaming and you want to try something more D&D-esque, you might want to go this way. Or if you are going from something D&D-esque and you want to move to some tabletop wargaming, it's a good middle ground. I know I'm definitely going to be trying to pick up a copy of this because it's a game that I feel like you can play with people who aren't very into D&D or into tabletop gaming. You don't have to make them paint stuff. Right out of the box, you set stuff up and you're ready to go.
Absolutely. So take that as you will. I think we'll be playing this at least at some point in the future for ourselves, because we definitely really enjoyed that demo and kind of kept itching for more. Like I kind of asked, it was already really late that night, and I was like, I kind of want to play more.
All of us were sitting there going, we don't want to ask, should we play another game? We all have work in the morning.
Right.
But then we played another game.
And then after that, it was the same standoff, but then most of us were like, we really shouldn't do another one.
Yeah.
Because it's still a work night. So any game that makes me want to just keep playing or sit down and play again is a win in my book. So we'll leave it at that. And if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us at the tabletop@gmail.com.
Or any of our many social media presences, Facebook, Twitter. We have a Twitter.
We have a Twitter.
It's there. Instagram. We probably suggest Instagram or Twitter because then chances are...
Instagram or Facebook.
Oh, yep, there we go. Instagram or Facebook. You'll probably be able to get us there more than Twitter. Because I think we're both logged into it, but we haven't looked at it.
Yeah. We'll get better.
Yeah.
As we grow, as we get more followers who actually do reach out to Twitter, we'll probably be more active there. But in the meantime, it exists, yes. And then also keep in mind that we'll definitely have more content coming. Next episode, we'll be talking about storage solutions for your collection and your games. Not only what do you do with all these boxes, but also storage solutions within the games. As some games have contents that will have tons of pieces, and how to organize those in such a way where it doesn't take you an hour to set up a game to play for 45 minutes just to pack it away for the next 30 minutes after that.
As always, a rolling die gathers no moss. This is Ricky.
And this is Justin.
Game on.
You've been listening to Tabletop Arcanum, hosted by Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, and featuring the original music by Paul Moore and Isaac Gilbert. You can follow us on most social media platforms. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. As always, thanks for listening.